As Misha told yesterday about diet, when you start eating subtle food, you start feeling bigger spectrum of energy, so your ability to scan the space around you is increasing. And if you develop such ability, you will feel the essential nature of trees. The trees differ by the magnitude of the energy which moves up the trunk. Beginning of the strong roots, they drag the energy up. It goes on very slowly, but you may feel it out. Well then, the practitioners look for large trees. It is like doping. If you call things by their proper names, the tree is doping, which helps sportsman to progress to the stage which he can't progress to using his own efforts. And the trees become such the uplift. This is the fact. When we hold retreat Vipassana, we often told to our participants, guys, have a walk in the forest, sit under a tree and try to practice the pranayama, which you used to practice indoor. In fact, many participants, while practicing under the tree, succeeded to gain the subtle experience they couldn't gain indoor. The fact is, the trees help you, and the bigger the tree is, the bigger effect you may achieve. And Buddha Shakyamuni was also looking for such a big tree. According to some evidences, that tree was extraordinary. Does everybody know the term release? Everyone faces some kinds of addictions in the course of our lifetime. Most of people think that they are free and only they make decisions. But if they take their notebook and honestly write down all their expectancies and wishes, what they like or dislike, then they will understand that they may give up some things easily, but there are some things which cause big troubles when the people try to give them up. And the people must satisfy some patience to make their life restful. Does everyone understand it? Well, release means that a person detects his passion and understands that it takes over his life energy. There are his life, his goals he had set, but it looks like that the patience takes away the energy from the goal which he wants to achieve. The release is the freedom from the passion. This means that the goals may be achieved. I understand that I am telling you completely idealistic things, which are hard to understand, accept, and moreover, to realize. But in fact, most of the yoga practitioners try to find a way to combine both the satisfaction of the patience and the spiritual development. The situation when a man living in a society becomes free from all patience is idealistic and most probably is impossible. In this situation, I found the following way out. First, we accept the fact that patience exists and regularly come to us. For example, when you talk to a person, you feel his wishes and patience, but they don't cause problems for you. You may transform the incoming patience into fuel for your trip. I will give you an example. All of you most probably are practicing yoga. Am I right? Did you go to the yoga class? Have you mentioned that your progress in yoga class is high when you are well disposed to your teacher? It appears that there is some kind of affection or sympathy, and it is the sympathy and the affection that lets you achieve the highest level in yoga practice. This is like a fuel or like a tool. Let's consider the food. Imagine you have some food which you like. Try to do the following. Form an image in thought how you give your food to some god, Buddha or Bodhisattva, and then eat the food. You will feel that the function of the food changes. The food quality will be changed. One would think that you are satisfying the patient, but in fact the patient takes quite a different form. Therefore, I can't talk to people idealistically. Guys, in this life we will achieve enlightenment and release. No, possibly someone will achieve it, but his life will be less effective for other living beings. If you want to help other living beings, the patients are not something bad for you, if you have qualification to control them to some extent. Why am I telling you this? It is true that ascesis is beautiful and it is magnificent to be enlightened, but I am not sure if that's the case in our times. How to control the patience? If you have qualification to meditate, you may do meditation. But I know that this question was asked by the yoga teacher, and I have to give the proper answer to him. The thing is, you will have the capacity for meditation until your energy lets you do it. When many people focus on you, you may not only forget how to meditate, but how to breathe through your nose. The tools which used to help you become ineffective, and the ability to meditate disappears when you start actively teaching yoga. It turns out that, on the one hand, you want to give benefit, on the other hand, your ability to concentrate has disappeared. Which of you have tried to sit under the bodhi tree and then wondered, how come this delirium came to my mind? In other words, you want to focus on something, but there is a kaleidoscope of delirium in your mind. And you think, how's that? The place around you is good, everyone says that you only need to sit here and meditate, but nothing is going to work out. How's that? Because at this moment your mind is composed of these thoughts. And what does the golden mean? On the one hand, when you watch TV and constantly read news in the internet, you have chaos inside. On the other hand, when using ascesis, you keep yourself clean, and you can communicate with people. For you, people will be some kind of energetic scrapyards. And moreover, some fastidious persons say, I even don't want to repeat what they say, but for them, other people who live a normal life do not deserve attention. They count themselves good ascetics and believe that everything is fine. The efficiency of this life type is negligible. This is Shravaka's path, if you understand what I mean. So, Alena, I am answering to your question. You have to look for. Each chakra is related to some kind of a problem. All patients and dependencies are based on one or another chakra. The great majority of people suffer from Manipura chakra. Due to feelings of pride, people may succeed to control the lust coming from Svadhisthana chakra. But what is the next stage to deal with? What is the next chakra? Manipura chakra. What makes this chakra famous? Food. Food comes for a visit. And a man eats one plate of food, and right after that, the man looks for the second plate, and the third one. He eats and eats, but can't be sated. It means that Manipura chakra may result in uncontrolled eating. A person understands after eating 2 dishes, he gets stupefied and becomes like a vegetable. He thinks, how is that? Because the food stupefies. It is often the case that the yoga teachers find some chakra where they drain off the energy. It helps to keep the worst energy from taking control of the teachers. This is the problem. At the next stage, if yoga teacher succeeds to remain on his path, he devotes his energies to activities. He creates some club or he earns such a reputation that people start seeking the advices of him. It appears that they find the way out of patience by giving their efforts and energy to devotion. And imagine the situation. You have 20 hours out of your day mapped out. You don't have time even to think about the patients. The patients may be on the periphery or become background. For example, you imply sympathy to a person, but you would better write an email to the person or have a good talk without any side effects. So, devoting the energy of desire to some activity is the perfect choice. If you have ever interested in how the so-called effective managers live, you could see that their day is fully mapped out. They spend 20 hours per day in the office. I know one manager, he comes to the office at 8 in the morning and leaves at 10 o'clock in the evening. He spends all the day in the office. During the weekends, he is also in the office. He comes to the office on Saturday and on Sunday. It means he is really a workaholic. But much to my regret, these people do evil. Of course, they always have an excuse why they deprave the society. That man I am talking about has been responsible for indictment of people, especially the young generation. This is how they work. They work super efficiently, much to my regret. They work in that way for a couple of reasons. Either they used to be the retards consuming the products which they produce now, or in the future they will have to use the products which they produce for other people now. Much to my regret. Okay. May I ask a question? I have observed that people who popularize some type of diet and who often give lectures and seminars about the diet often have serious failures in following their own diet. I mean the situation when people propagate a kind of a good healthy eating, but then they fall off the diet and start living an absolutely different lifestyle. Some yoga teachers who do focus on diet also fall into the trap. Well, from your experience, I have been keeping an eye on you, and you often tell about the problems with Manipura chakra, but you have no problems with it. Because I used to have the problems with Manipura chakra. Did everyone understand what Katya said? In fact, experience shows that all the people, I haven't met exceptions, who start propagating healthy eating, step by step fall under the influence of great wild instinct to eat. Sometimes beyond common sense. I haven't met exceptions. I also used to have the problems with Manipura chakra, when I ate more than I needed. I simply got stupefied. I didn't like it at all. Didn't like that I right after eating you become like a vegetable. Simply got stupefied. I didn't like it very much. I tried to find some solutions, but the thing is that it was the beginning of the 90s, when in Russia, I'm sorry to say, there was not a plenty of food to eat. Maybe for that reason I came through it quite easily. And not only for that reason. I had one interesting experience. I was trying to find the reason for my living and couldn't find it. On the other hand, I was practicing yoga, but I had too much of yoga. Once I had a meditation. In principle, the way out of patience is the following. You have the life energy only because you... In Russian language, there is a term, waste a chance. You know, it's not a formal language term, but of all other terms, it shows the situation exactly. It means that you wasted a chance when you were able to deal with energy. When the energy takes you by the scruff of your neck, turns your head towards the one more dish, you wasted that moment when you had to dispose the energy or channel the energy towards something. If the dish is already ahead of you, you missed the boat. There is nothing for it but to live efficiently. I believe this is a great benefit. You may dispose your energy to other people, you may give lectures, upload some videos to the web, but the most important is, what is your life goal? For what are you living all in all? Do you really need children, apartments, cars? Of course not. Children, apartments and cars for you is the instrument, by no means the goal. In other words, never confuse the instruments with the goal. The instruments may be different, and the instruments may give benefits, aren't they? Have I answered your question about how we should deal with patients? You need preventive measure. There exists a concept to channel the energy towards something else, such that nothing is left for follies. What else questions do you have, friends? How do the public people, for instance, politicians, stand millions of people focusing on them? How do they live at all, and where do they take energy? I will repeat the question. Where do politicians and social activists take energy from? How do they stand millions of people? I know that the one who's asked the question deals with the groups of people, gives lectures to them. Am I right? I'm 100% sure that he has first-hand experience of how, after giving a lecture, energies come for a visit. Enormous challenges start at least with body health, and the worst with the mental health. It begs the question, how do people deal with it? All in all, the core of the problem is the following. Either these people have the same level of energy as their audience, so they don't feel anything and live the way it is, or the second explanation, they have in fact both the energy level and the worldview even worse than the audience have. Those people who seek cameras or publicity say they do it to get charged energetically. This is so only because their energetics or their worldview is below than their audience. Because a holy person will never be able to stand such people. But the moral moron can stand much more than the holy person. At some point, this is interrelated. Comment. The energy goes backwards if the energy level is lower than the energy level of the audience. Yes, of course. That is why the so-called creative intellectuals who sing songs in front of people say that they get a charge during their performances. On the other hand, do you know how they live? A long time ago, I was acquainted with a model. In those years, she was a star and told me some stories. In other words, she tried to excuse herself for drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes and practicing a nasty way of life. She said the following: after the photo sessions, I have a feeling that I am skinned alive. I feel so terrible, I am ready to grasp at any straw to change the situation in the least, because I can't eat, can't sleep, it's tough. They feel it. And for... what do you think, why do the models earn high income? One would think that she poses her body and receives lots of money for it. But why? Only because the ones who pay the money are well aware that this job is for slaughter. In fact, these models sell their energy, but afterwards they have to pay high prices for their previous activities. And saying the least, their life can't be adequate anymore. Their life level is lower than the level of the normal life. But you know, this is not bad in fact. Until now, we have been considering a problem that being in the focus of a large number of people is hard. But there are advantages as well. For instance, after you gave a lecture to 10 people, your energy goes down to some low level. By practicing yoga or ascesis, you convert the energy and raise it up. Next time you will need 15 people to get the feeling of the same low energy level. You will have the same effect. After you converted the energy again, you need 25 people to feel lower energy level. So your ability to be in the focus of people gets bigger step by step. But the most important is not only your ability, but the quality of your lectures will get bigger as well. The higher number of difficulties you may endure, the stronger you become. I will give you an example. When you are giving a lecture for the first time, you feel nervous. Everybody understands that giving a lecture is... Where's Misha? How was your lecture yesterday? That was okay, normal. In the beginning I wanted to follow my plan, but I didn't manage to do it at all. In fact, all the young teachers feel nervous at the beginning. I tell all our students who study in our yoga teaching program, make plans of what you are going to tell about before giving your lecture. Even though the teacher has some written plan with him, he often tells about something different than he has prepared. Step by step, all the anxieties go away. and the teacher starts giving lectures in a sustained way, in a quality manner. So it's meaningless to be afraid of the audience. When you have some audience which you may talk with, try to adhere them to more or less adequate views. It is always possible to say something which may refine the society, regardless of the conversation topic. It is so. Fine, friends, what else questions do you have? Question. It is supposed that in the older days Kshatriyans were taught by Brahmans. Brahmans gave knowledge not about the military arts, but the worldviews. In fact, who was responsible for the mindset of the Kshatriyans? These Kshatriyans didn't study at ashrams. I mean here. There is a good example, the TV episode of Mahabharata, the classical situation known from the Vedic culture. Where were Pandavas and Kauravas sent? To teach a Drona living in the forest. Especially for them, even according to the TV episodes, a camp was built where they endured some hardships. Indeed, the camp was organized in a way such that the king's wives had no access to the young princess, thus maintaining ascetic and hard life conditions in the camp. Certainly, on the one hand, Drona was teaching them the military art. On the other hand, they had to learn some basics of moral and spiritual knowledge. Everything was combined. Certainly, depending on the teacher mindset, the followers received different knowledge, but always certain moral foundation was required. It is impossible to raise the fearless warrior if he doesn't know the reincarnation or karma concept. If the warrior mindset is based on goodness, he will never be afraid of death. For him, the battle is simply a lesson which life gives to him. There is an opinion that the Cossacks were nearly invincible. This is told in scriptures. There was an episode in some chronicles when the Turks came up against either 7 or 10 Cossacks, where the number of Turks was several thousands. The Turks rubbed hands, thinking of skinning the Cossacks, because in the ancient armies the image of severity and violence was cultivated. Demonstration of fierce cruelty was considered to raise the fear and keep obedience in other countries. For this reason, there were moral freaks who were especially brought up. Therefore, the Turks were thinking of mocking at the Cossacks. But it turned out that these Cossacks split up, each one took up 2 sabers, and the story writer describes what happened afterwards. They simply rode into the army line. There was a real army, but they simply chopped it up. None of the arrows couldn't damage them. The Cossacks stupidly crushed everyone. They turned around and again hit the army and again chopped up the army. None of the arrows fired by the archers could strike through them. Why did that happen? Is that achievable in the normal life? A man is fired by arrows, and the arrows can strike through his naked body. It is impossible. There is historical data about the rats attacking the Cossacks' village in the Don region in the modern times. It is told about some Cossack, either captain or someone else, was fighting against the rats, and in the end he destroyed the rats and he returned to his village center. When he took off his clothes, the clothes were pierced by bullets, and the bullets simply fell down from under his clothes. It turned out that the clothes was pierced, but the body was not. Where did such conscience quality come from, so the bullets can strike through a man? How was that achieved? What do you think? From a certain mindset. Right. A certain invincibleness program had to be installed in the mind of the students of Kshatriya school. So he represented not a simple warrior, but something invincible. so none of the weapons could hurt him. Is that logical? So the warriors, according to Mahabharata, were brought up with a certain mindset, which let understand that the death is not just the worst. It is just the transition. If the warrior for the whole of his life has been committed to a righteous cause and has been a guardian of equity, then he meets the death completely fearlessly. Even in case of his death, he reincarnates immediately and well. It is natural. Nowadays, it transformed into religious fanatism when people scream Allah Akbar and kill themselves. I understand that in the modern world, when airports are blown up, it's not really adequate and simply meaningless. But still, the religious principles used to have some certain causes. Why that was possible? Why did people go to their deaths? The facts show that a person, after transforming his spirit in a school, may become undefeatable. Unfortunately, nowadays everything is lost, and you may see the total mess happening with kshatriyans in India, and kshatriyans are okay with it. Question: in what extent Brahmans are responsible for the karma of the kshatriyans which they have educated? Let's assume a kshatriyan who kills and chops heads. Of course, they are responsible for them. If Brahman brought up someone who unlimitedly chops heads, he is 100% responsible for it. But if the Kshatriyan has no other way out and chops heads, then the Brahman should have warned him. If you start chopping heads, you will have to work on yourself afterwards. Katya, remind please a story about a Tibet king, Gesara, who practiced Vipassana after coming back from military campaigns. He also obliged his assistants to practice Vipassana as well. There is very curious scripture about the king Gesar, called Gesar, the king of Ling, considered as a Tibet folkloric tale, where a description of how the old warriors treated the battles. It is described in this story straight off. After returning from some victorious battle, he forced himself and all his generals to go into self-confinement and practice self-development. It is specifically told in the story that because of the lots of karma I gained during all these murders, I have to work on myself. On top of everything, he practiced Vipassana for several years to work on himself. This is not a fairy tale, it is reality, because an adequate warrior has to understand that the so-called simple murder is not simple. During my life, I ran into professional warriors who have many notches on their gun stocks. And I really looked at the mindset of these people, examining their ability to practice yoga. Nearly none of them is able to practice yoga because they have big problems with legs. Their legs are not flexible at all, even though they are young people, but they have a wooden body. Because there is an opinion, if you kill someone, you get the karma of the one you killed, because you interfered in a certain passage of time. I understand what you are talking about, but, you know, it is an idealistic situation. In fact, it is hard to explain it to you, a woman, but if you had ever been in real combat action, you would have known one simple thing. The moral level falls down there, and you stop being a human at all. So completely different regimes of survivability turn on. Apparently Muladhara chakra is activated and you start surviving, and all of the knowledge you had disappears. What is the difference between beginner and experienced fighter? During a battle, the young fighter forgets everything he learned before, such that he sits like a vegetable and simply gets stupid. And there is nothing you can take away from him. So it's an ideal situation you are talking about, such that he will kill someone kindly. Perhaps some advanced guys such as Granddad Bhishma, teacher Drona and few more outstanding teachers, who were visionary serving as warriors, could demonstrate some love towards, perhaps, understand me right. I'm simply trying to talk realistically. It's nice to believe in it, but I know the situation from the other side. It's nearly impossible. Question: what if they are specially trained people who have the so-called fury, so that they are completely calm and keep consciousness even at the moment of... Yes, it would be nice if it were, or it is a transition to become Brahman, since they have one step more to understand what to do. Perhaps this may be true, but again, we are talking now absolutely unsubstantively. Question: please tell me, if I decide today to follow the bright path directly towards the top, can I bypass the stages, or I have to go through all of them? Yes, you can bypass the stages. Moreover, it doesn't matter which patience and which mindset you have today. Your previous lives matter. If during your previous lives you were already elected in a woman body, this is not a mistake. It's only said that in Vedic culture everything was prohibited for a woman. Do you know how many women did Buddha Shakyamuni have as his followers, who were simply genius and wise? They had such a great wisdom, so even kings, after talking with them, got enlightened. The kings with their great world outlook. So it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman in this life. What were your previous lives? If you had been a good lector in your previous lives, you would have felt intuitively that this is yours. When you give a lecture for the first time, you understand that you have done something that has kind of a value. And you will do it well automatically, but in fact, to my regret, the modern warriors are nearly not able to take the path of consciousness and self-development. But perhaps in future it may happen. I hope Georgi Sidorov, for example, will take the right path eventually, because he once told about some magicians who say the ancient knowledge. Moreover, I constantly deal with outlook of kshatriyans, those people who call themselves warriors. But they are prideful. Getting knowledge while having pride is nearly impossible. When a man starts positioning himself as a warrior, he automatically goes beyond the category of students. That's all. What will he learn? Unfortunately, nothing. When you are killing, the victim you are killing has certain feelings against you. And on a certain energy level, you get a hit and you feel it. But the thing is, there is a category of people who enjoy the killing. Most of people who become professional killers, I met the one. Well, doesn't matter. Can you imagine people who really enjoy killing? Can you? They don't have any compassion, apparently they're vice versa. They actually feel some kind of drive. Question: there are hunters, amateurs. I remember how in childhood I hit with a slingshot. There was some kind of hunter passion. I didn't think about it. But after some period, it just so happened that I even couldn't go fishing. I had a blowback immediately. You are right. When you face with living beings and cause them suffering, of course you get the feedback. This is the fact. You feel the feedback because your sensitivity spectrum has expanded. It happens to everyone. The only problem is that they don't feel it. When a man starts practicing yoga and self-development, a certain tool he uses to perceive the reality around becomes sharper. The spectrum of senses, feelings he perceives gets bigger. Among a certain category of yogis, there is a practice called grounding. Someone using alcohol, someone using tea, someone with the cigarettes, someone with chocolate. I don't want to make judgment in any way, and I have no right to do it. If a man thinks it helps him, just let him do it. It means this is his level of development, just let him practice it. I'm telling you, if you have an adequate audience focusing on you, you will be more or less at the audience level. Well then, record your lecture and upload to the web. That would be the grounding. Why to intoxicate yourself if instead you may do the same while benefiting the society? This is the first method to keep you grounded and not become kind of a lightweight. Talk to people and everything will be well with you. Conduct yoga lessons regularly, give a seminar and you will have so big troubles and will need at least a week to recover depending on the audience has attended the seminar. In reality, everything is regulated. I may tell you even more, there is a certain institute on some subtle level which regulates those who come to your seminar and the qualities they have. This is according to the experience we had many times. I will give you an example. To our yoga club in Moscow, which is an ascetic yoga club, only those people come who are destined to come to. This is not a glamour club. The glamour people don't stay with us. We have been thinking a lot, why do we have such the club, although in principle it was possible to do this another way. Everything would have been glamour, comfortable for the visitors on one side, but on the other, we would have been different in that case. Very different. That is why, perhaps to somehow protect ourselves, we were placed in, ascetic environment so we can develop ourselves to some extent. Well, what I want to tell you, our club auditorium can hold up to 30 people. For the last years, there were held many practices per week, 2 practices per evening. On average, we have 200-300 people who may come to practice in our hall. But why do we always have 29 people maximum per practice? This is not a joke. For the last 10 years, just imagine 10 years, we have had only 2 cases when 33 people came to our hall, so we had to practice tandem yoga. There always exists a special filter retarding someone. It is the fact. So if you give a lecture to someone to ground yourself, if you have such purpose, only those people will come to you who needs to come. I simply try to explain to you this world is not as it seems to you. But the fact is that you are not grounded by the artificial intoxications. You will be grounded by other way, if you are an adequate person. Am I right? Well, friends, we have talked about life, so to speak, at this place where Buddha Shakyamuni practiced extreme ascesis and realized that the extreme ascesis only destroy you. And it is needed to go the middle way to make everything in your life in moderation. Suffering and happiness should be in equal measure, so you will have an adequate perception of the reality around you. And if you have very sensitive perception, it will be very hard to live. If you are, on the contrary, very rude, it will be also very hard to live just like that. Because you will be dopey, I'm sorry to say, and the same kind of people will come to you. It is very painful when people unable to self-development come to you. You talk to them, but they may only talk about asanas, and there is nothing more that they are interested in. It's their right. Okay, friends. Thank you.